Lena hit the hard-packed earth with a force that knocked the breath right out of her. She barely registered that her horse had bolted, running blind as if a ghost was snapping at its heels. Her scream pierced the heavy summer air of Abilene, sharp and terrifying. Dust billowed around her as she writhed in the dirt, gasping for air until the pain finally hit, a jagged, white-hot fire in her leg. Jacob Hayes, a man who had spent his life on the ranch, knew the difference between a simple fall and a tragedy. The sound she made caused him to drop his saddle instantly. It was the raw cry of someone suffering a hurt deep enough to change a life. He sprinted across the yard, his heart hammering against his ribs, the heat radiating off the ground like an oven. Lena lay near the corral fence, her leg twisted at an angle that turned Jacob's stomach. She clawed at the dirt, her eyes wide with panic. Jacob knelt beside her, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Look at me, Lena. Stay present. Where is the pain?" She choked out the words. "My leg, it's burning." He reared up. "Someone was chasing me." Jacob saw the problem immediately. The fabric of her dress was acting like a tourniquet, and the bone was out of place. If he didn't cut the cloth and reset the joint before the swelling took hold, the damage would be permanent. He grabbed the hem of her dress. He couldn't afford to hesitate. From the shadow of the barn, a young ranch hand froze in his tracks. He saw Jacob gripping Lena's dress, ripping the fabric to expose her thigh. He heard Lena scream in agony as Jacob touched the injury. The boy didn't wait to see the rest. In his mind, the scene was already a crime. He turned and sprinted toward town, his boots kicking up dust, carrying a story that was already poisoned before it ever left his lips. Back in the dust of the yard, Jacob was oblivious to the witness. His world had narrowed down to the bruising bloom on Lena's skin. "I have to see how bad it is," he told her, his voice gritty with tension. "I know it hurts. Hold on." Lena squeezed her eyes shut, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her face. "Make it stop," she begged. Jacob braced himself and finished tearing the restriction away. As her cry echoed across the ranch, the stable boy reached Main Street, shouting that Jacob Hayes was attacking a woman in broad daylight. The town stopped. Ears perked up. The rumor mill began to grind. Meanwhile, Jacob leaned over Lena, wiping sweat from his brow. "I'm trying to save you," he whispered urgently. "Don't pass out on me." But the question was no longer just about her leg. It was about whether the town would believe the man who saved her, or the lie that was about to burn his life to the ground. Jacob watched Lena's strength fading. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps, and her fingers dug into the soil as if she were trying to anchor herself to the earth. The air around them shimmered with heat, heavy and suffocating. Jacob checked the wound again. The swelling was rapid, and her pulse fluttered wildly under his touch. He recognized the signs from his days as a field medic in the war. If he didn't act within minutes, she would lose the limb. "Talk to me, Lena," he commanded gently. "Stay with me." She tried to speak, but only a whimper escaped. The road to town was empty. No doctor, no help. Jacob cursed under his breath. He knew the doctor was miles away attending to another accident. He was on his own. He had to pull the joint back into alignment, a brutal procedure that would cause immense pain but was the only way to save her future. "I don't want to die," Lena whispered, her gaze flicking fearfully toward the empty road behind them. Jacob gripped her shoulder. "You aren't dying, not while I'm breathing." She admitted she couldn't feel her toes. That was the final warning. He handed her a strip of leather. "Bite down. This is going to be bad." Jacob took a breath, letting the muscle memory of the battlefield take over. He pulled. The bone snapped back into place. Lena's scream was blood-curdling, but as the joint settled, her breathing slowed. She was safe, for now. But then Jacob saw the dust cloud on the horizon. It wasn't the doctor. It was the sheriff. Sheriff Cole Maddox rode into the yard with the arrogance of a man who enjoyed his badge a little too much. He had been waiting for a chance to bring Jacob down, and the ranch hand's panic gave him the perfect excuse. He slid off his horse, his boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud, and surveyed the scene with a cold, sour smile. "Well now," Cole drawled, looking from Lena's torn dress to Jacob. "What exactly is happening here?" Jacob stood up, wiping his hands. "She fell. Her horse threw her. I had to reset her leg." Cole circled them like a predator sensing a wound. "That's a nice story, Jacob, but the folks in town are saying you were forcing yourself on her, tearing her clothes right here in the dirt." Lena, barely conscious, tried to lift her head. "No," she rasped. He saved me. Cole didn't even glance at her. He kept his eyes locked on Jacob. It would be a shame if this little misunderstanding destroyed everything you built. Jacob felt his temper rising. He saw the game Cole was playing. It wasn't about justice. It was about power. She needs a doctor, Cole, not your games. The sheriff chuckled darkly. You're in a bad spot, Hayes. Rumors travel faster than truth. Lena whispered to Jacob, they will believe him unless we stop this now. The tension hung thick in the air. How do you fight a lie when the man telling it holds the law in his hands? Thank you for listening. If you want to hear how this ends, tap subscribe. And tell me, what time is it where you are right now? 3 days later, the atmosphere in Abilene was suffocating. The rumor had spread like wildfire, twisted by Cole's influence until half the town was ready to see Jacob hang. Cole called a public hearing at the church, claiming it was to protect the honor of the town, but everyone knew it was a show trial. Jacob carried Lena into the packed building. She was pale but determined. We tell the truth, she whispered. Together. The church went silent as they entered. Cole stood at the pulpit wearing a mask of false concern. Good people, he began, his voice smooth as oil. We are here to address the attack on this young woman. A gasp went through the room. Cole turned to Jacob. Do you have anything to say? Jacob stepped forward, his voice ringing clear against the wooden walls. She was injured. I reset a dislocated bone to save her leg. Every action I took was to keep her alive. Cole laughed softly. You expect us to believe that you ripped her dress for medical reasons? Lena forced herself to stand, gripping the pew. He is telling the truth. You were the one who scared my horse. You caused this. The room froze. Cole's eyes went black with rage. Careful, girl. Accusing the law is a dangerous path. Jacob stepped between them. That's enough, Cole. Suddenly a voice shouted from the back. Stop! It was the ranch hand, the boy who had started it all. The young stable boy stepped into the aisle, twisting his hat in his hands, looking terrified but resolute. I saw it, he stammered, his voice shaking. I saw the whole thing. I lied before. I panicked. Jacob wasn't hurting her. She was screaming because of her leg. He was fixing it. He saved her. A wave of murmurs washed over the crowd. Shame began to replace the anger on the faces of the townsfolk. Then, the town doctor, Dusty from the road, stepped forward. I examined the girl, he announced loudly. If Jacob hadn't set that bone when he did, she would be crippled today. He did exactly what a medic should do. The truth hit the room like a hammer. Lena slumped back onto the bench, relief flooding her veins. She looked at Jacob, and the town followed her gaze, finally seeing the man instead of the monster Cole had painted. The sheriff tried to bluster, but the preacher quietly asked him to leave. 2 elders escorted Cole out, stripped of his authority by the sheer weight of the truth. Jacob sat beside Lena, and she took his hand, a silent gesture of profound gratitude. As the people filed out, humbled and quiet, Lena watched the sunlight stream across the floor. It stays with you, she said softly, knowing someone stood tall for you when the whole world wanted you to fall. And perhaps that is the lesson. When the crowd turns away, one person standing firm in the truth is all that matters. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more tales from the West. Now, what are you sipping on tonight?